Welcome, friends. Welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you, as always, by Camels Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days, and see for yourself what a difference Camels can make in your life. Well, my friends, because of the things that were going on, I went back and took a look at a 2012 paper that I presented at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem for Robert S. Wistrick, the foremost authority on anti-Semitism in the world. He passed away a few years ago. And this, I highly recommend, this is his book, A Lethal Obsession, Anti-Semitism from Antiquity to Global Jihad. It's a quick read. It's only about 1,000 pages. Yeah, well, 1,100. I mean, but that's a lot of notes there, you know. So, and the other one, as long as I'm mentioning, this is the other one that I really recommend if you want to understand anti-Semitism. Read Anti-Judaism by David Nirenberg. He's a classical classicist, and he talks about anti-Semitism in Western thought, very deeply embedded in Western thought. So I'm going to read you a little piece from my 2012 paper, in which I talk about my promotion of Camel cigarettes. An object like a pack of cigarettes is understood by how it fits into a tightly woven fabric of reality. We, like the moon, are caught in a gravitational field of something much larger than we are. The moon would like to travel in a straight line, but the fabric of space-time is warped and it cannot escape. Our thoughts are like that. We see a pack of camels, and our thoughts are filled with all the cliches that we have heard over time. All around us, adults smoke. From the movies, we learn the pleasures of mixing tobacco and sex. After a fine dinner, we light up. Everyone knows that tobacco is good for your digestion. Obviously, tobacco has been good for the United States. The country wouldn't exist if the colonies had not had a stable cash crop. But what is interesting is how our perceptions of tobacco were warped or shaped by the importance of this product, just as our perceptions of slavery were warped by the importance of that institution to our economic well-being. American racism developed to justify the expropriation of native lands and the enslavement of Africans. Anti-Semitism should not play any role in American racism. It ought to be irrelevant, but it is not. Across the white supremacist movement, beginning with the period under discussion, this paper was on the high tide of anti-Semitism, 1921 to 1940. An obsessive anti-Semitism appears at the root of American racism. The rhetoric of American racists, both black and white, is dominated by anti-Semitism. And this obsessive focus on the Jews, first seen with the lynching of Leo Frank in Atlanta in 1915, emerged as a central concern in the immigration debates that led to the 1924 act that closed the doors to European Jews. This anomaly is hardly noticed by historians. There are now hundreds of studies of eugenics in the United States, and while anti-Semitism is sometimes noted, the centrality of anti-Semitism is hardly ever acknowledged, and most often it is simply glossed over. So I wanted to, this was a birthday gift I got many years ago. It is a very hefty piece of coprolite, basically a very large animal, about 65 million years ago, took a dump. And 65 million years ago, somebody bought this for me for a birthday present. All right, so, and it reminds me of exactly what's going to be the result of our civilization. 65 million years from now, we're just going to be a pile of coprolite. So let me begin by saying that I had a really tough time this week because, you know, the Democrats did so well in the last election, and our focus was on, you know, boy, things are looking up, boy, I tell you, you know, the Republican Party is crashing. Unfortunately, there were a few other things that were happening in the world. Well, actually, there's only one other thing that's happening in the world, and that was at Gaza. Ukraine didn't exist anymore, and in South Sudan, over 2 million people have been made homeless refugees in the last 6 months because of the war in South Sudan. A genocide that's been going on for the last 20 years, but who cares about that anyway? I mean, whatever. And so I made a few notes that helped me focus, on some of the bad news, because we had so much good news this week. So there was, well, let me see what we got here. Oh yeah, so well, actually, let me start off with this one, the last one, Grindavik. Okay, so the big news right now, we're sitting on top of a volcano in Iceland, underneath the town of Grindavik, which at midnight, I think it was Saturday night or Friday night. I'm not sure when it was evacuated, but at midnight they evacuated the town because the lava magma flow is right underneath the town, and it looks like it can blow any minute. And in the discussion, the scientists were saying that actually volcanoes are more frequent now because of the melting of the glaciers. The glaciers act like a cork, and they keep the pressure. There's pressure, the magma is pressure from down below that wants to push up. And the glaciers are pressure from above that keeps everything stable. As the glaciers melt, the volcanoes pop out more and more. So we've had a whole lot of volcanoes, more than we normally expect. So that's one thing. And Paul Beckwith had his last video was on methane. And let me just go back there. And he said, atmospheric methane is rocketing upwards in a possible termination zone event. Okay, so here's what's going on. There's been a problem that we have models that tell us how fast the Earth should be warming up, and what we could do to prevent the warming and to save ourselves. And of course, we ignore all that, but never mind. The models have consistently failed to predict not only how fast things are going to warm up, but how fast things are going to increase in the speed that they are warming up. And one of the things that I've been saying for years is that it's exponential. Things are getting exponentially worse. We don't notice it, but it's much, much worse than it used to be. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and let me tell you, it's a lot worse now than it used to be when I was a kid, So anyway, but one of the reasons for that, he focuses now on methane, and there are two sources of methane. One is methane from fossil fuels, 65 million year old methane, the methane that came from these guys. And that methane we pump out, we release it sometimes when we're digging for oil, and we also sell it as natural gas. And then there's the methane that comes from cows farting, from swamps, from the melting of the permafrost, and of forest fires. And of course, we know that the forest fires have been just raging around the world and releasing large amounts of carbon dioxide, but also methane. And that the permafrost is melting, and as the permafrost melts, it releases lots of carbon dioxide. And as the ocean warms, it too releases lots of more of methane. So we are increasing the amount of methane that's going into the atmosphere, and it looks like we're moving towards what Paul called a termination event. You figured that out for yourself. So fortunately, there was something for me to talk about besides anti-Semitism, but I did note that the situation, for Jews is dire, and I knew it would be. When you have anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred that exists on the planet. Goes back to antiquity, goes back to before Christianity. Pharaoh didn't particularly like Jews. The Amalekites and the Israelites, it started off, the Amalekites and the Israelites, a genocidal conflict. It has been going on for longer than any other. This is a long history that has a whole historical, more than any other hatred that has existed on this planet. And the attempts to exterminate the Jews, also, on Passover, we say in every generation, someone's risen up to try to get rid of us. And here we are. I always celebrate the fact that we did make it to the end. This is the end, and we are here. We are here to still smile and gloat that despite all efforts, we are still here. But there's one final effort which will be successful, because not only there won't be any more Jews, they will be successful in that. All you have to do is burn the whole house down, and ensure that the human species goes extinct, and then there will be no more Jews. So, my friends, it turns out that after all the good news, it's still been another week of very bad news. And without going into any of the further details, which I'm trying to stay away from, I will wish you a pleasant week. Enjoy yourselves. This is it. If you can't squeeze out a little bit of juice now at the end of time, then you're in a very sad shape. And I feel for you. And I know that there are a lot of people who are suffering and in tremendous pain. But for those of us who are privileged to be in places where we can smell the grass and enjoy the trees, my advice is get out there and do it. See what joy you can find in life, and spread it as far and wide as you can. So that's it for this week. I will talk to you again next week, God willing, if I'm still around, with more bad news.